Hey, thanks for joining today. Today we're going to run through our P6-Loader. It's our version 13, and this is the session for existing P6-Loader clients. Okay, I'm Nicole Jardin. I'm joining today from Calgary, and I'm going to run through the software too. And I've been participating in a lot of these changes because I'm working with a client right now that really benefited from the fragnet or templating that I'm going to show you. Of course, we've got Ravi on the line here from Brazil, and probably quite a few know Ravi. He's the lead programmer on P6-Loader and most of our tools, and P6-Loader is his baby. So that's why you probably know him already. Now, let me touch on some of the new features that we've added. So this is really dating myself, using the word fragnet, but I may not be alone in knowing what that means. So that's an old term from P3, a very old term. It's basically a template. It's a portion of a project. So that's the thing we've added to this version. Now, I think maybe two or three versions ago, we added the ability to copy a full project when you make a new project. This is a piece, a portion of the project. So I'm going to show you that in detail. Now, not only can you use it to create, you can also use it to do updates. Okay, so today I'm going to show you the creating because I have other things I want to talk about. And hopefully in the next session, I'll have the updating as well to be able to show you. Okay, so that's a big, huge change that we've done. I would call it really a whole brand new feature. Now, what we did there was we used a lot of our integration technology components, and we took advantage of that to put it into P6-Loader so that you can call templates and do all sorts of great stuff with it. Okay, so we kind of used those two things and bundled them up into P6-Loader. The other thing that we worked on considerably was the layouts. Now, we already had the ability to do some copying of layouts, filters, reports, global changes, but we went further with that in layout management because layouts are always a tricky thing, especially if we don't have back-end access and things like that. Depending on, if you're in the Oracle Cloud, for example, we don't always have all the access that we have when we're supporting in our own cloud. So I'm going to show you the features that we've added on the layout management. And then we did some enhancements, okay? So we have quite a few clients using the rate loading. But when I tried to use the rate loading, it didn't have the resource name. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure what I'm looking at. So we just did some enhancements like that. Predecessor, successor, same thing. When I was using it, again, with this client, building out a huge IT program, we were changing predecessors, successors a lot, but I couldn't see the name of the predecessor. And that was a key thing for me. So we added some enhancements there. So I'm going to show you those. Hopefully it will make your life easier too. It made mine easier when I was working on this huge IT program. And then things like if you load an activity and the name is too long, it wouldn't load it, right? So we changed that. We loaded it. We chopped off the name, the description, and make it very clear that it had to do that, but at least it gets it in. So little things like that, especially when you're working with lots of data, it'll hopefully make it easier for you to work with. And similarly on the WBS, sometimes seeing the full path of the WBS and the level of the WBS makes it easier when you're building things out. So again, we've made some enhancement on that. So I'm going to show you those. For another client. So this is the thing that's so kind of nice about what we're doing with Loader, right? We usually add features because someone wants it. So we've had a few big requests here in the last bit. That's why we've got this version out. So another one of our clients, existing clients, really wanted to do a lot of work with the period actuals. And we needed to add some enhancements there to make sure that the activity gets started. Okay, so you might not have checked the actual start, so we're doing that automatically. So again, just some more automations, enhancements to make things better. And the codes we already had a roll down, but we even improved some of the features there. So I think I'm going to need Ravi to help explain that, because I didn't use that, so I'm not as familiar with that piece. So we can talk about that and run through that. Okay, so I'm going to jump in to P6-Loader and start to show you the template. I'm going to start with that, and then we'll move on to look at the layouts and some of the other enhancements that we added. Now, if you do have a question, go ahead and throw it in the question room as we run through, okay? And we will try and tackle them as we go. Ravi's on the line, so he can certainly jump in and help answer any questions. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm going to start with explaining the template creation, the fragnet creation. So again, if you used fragnets in P3, we had a placeholder format, and we can build out some sort of like searching and replacing kind of concepts. So we've built that into our template and beyond. Okay, so this is the thing that I'm gonna highlight here. So we have essentially a template. So this is an IT template. This is a little construction type template, and you can have many different pieces of a template. So you could have turnarounds for work orders, different kinds of work orders, perhaps different pre and post work templates for utilities, same thing. You might have different work types that you deal with, preventative maintenance versus customer response type work. So it might be a lot of different templates that you might create. So I'm going to just give you a flavor of some here. Now in here, I've got different placeholders ready for it to be replaced. Okay, so I've got 2 numbers, 2 X's, etc. Okay, so this is just the format that I'm using in this example. Now that was the WBS. Now I'm using the same sort of thing in the activities. So I'm ready to receive different replacements here into the activity ID, into the activity name as well. Okay, now what I'm going to do in the template loader is I'm going to explain to P6-Loader what template I'm using. So go and grab this project and this WBS. Let me just make that bigger so you can read it. And where am I going to put it? I'm going to put it in this project. Now, it could be multiple projects. So with the client I was working with on the big IT program, I would run into 3-4 different projects with a list of work that they were going to do. Okay, so as an example, if we're rolling out SAP or P6 or Maximo, there's a standard way we want to make sure we're following, doing the work and following our procedures. So this is going to allow me to create a big long list, and the lists I was loading were hundreds and hundreds of different things all in one shot, which would have taken me days and days and days to build, even if I was copying and pasting. Okay, so I could rerun this, and I reran it, believe me, lots of times, and recreate a whole new schedule in literally half an hour. Okay, so it's going to go and find those two number signs, the 2 X's, and every time it finds it, it's going to replace it with these values. Okay. Now for my capital project, I have the same idea, just a different symbol and different names. Okay. So that's how this thing is going to work. Now, while we're doing that, I also want it to do different activity coding. All right. So it's going to go and do these activity codes. So it knows, so in this case, sorry, this is actually some wording. Okay. So the wording can also be using a different kind of naming convention. Okay. So it doesn't have to be this X and number. That's not a criteria. Okay. You can replace with different things. Here's an example here. It's a word DISC, so for discipline. And you can see that here. Okay, so it doesn't have to be this number sign and the X. You can put something that's a little more clear for your users in there. Now, at the same time, I want it to go ahead and fill in a bunch of codes for me as much as I can, right? Let's let the loader do the heavy lifting. So that's where we've got these activity codes. So it's going to go and assign them. Now we can also use what we already have in P6-Loader to create the activity code if it's not been created. Okay, so that's another really great thing is I was able to create lots of codes. Valerie helped me too, and so did Sue. So we were all working on creating this massive program using Loader. Okay, it saved us a lot of work. And then you can also do UDFs, and you can do resource assignment levels as well. So in this case, I've got a UDF there. Okay, so you create this spreadsheet. And as I mentioned, the spreadsheets I was loading, I had hundreds and hundreds of lines. So we were creating activity codes. We were creating the whole framework for their schedule with all the logic, all the resources, steps, etc. Okay, so let me go ahead and actually run this. Now, before I run it, I want to show you the project I'm going to load it into. So this is my template. Okay, so just taking advantage of all the bits and pieces inside P6 that we normally would, right? With steps, with resources. I should have some resources here. Yeah, resources. You know, all those usual things. You can put expenses in there and of course the logic, okay, which is going to save us a heck of a lot of time having that standard logic in there. So that's the template. So let me show you the project. So the project is got some stuff in it. You know, you might have some things that you wouldn't template that you would manually create, perhaps like project controls and things like that. Okay, so this one's ready to show different examples. I'm going to load into IT and capital for today. Okay, but you can load into more than one project at a time as well. You can load into more than one WBS at a time as well. So however makes sense for you guys to use it. So I do have a few, you know, activities in here that maybe made more sense to have them already in either manually or through Loader, but not necessarily a templated task, okay? So you can mix and match. So we're expecting this to get populated and this to get populated based on what we asked it to do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and load that in. So similar to before, you know, this is an upload. So extract and upload are the ones you guys use most, but of course we have some of these other features as well. And some of you probably noticed this screen looks a little different. Okay, so we added more controls on the upload so that you can say, well, I don't really want to update anything. I just want it to take the new stuff from the sheet. Okay, or although I have codes and UDFs, I've already loaded them. Let's just not load them on this round. Okay, so just giving you a bit more control inside of your loads to what we had. Now we had deletes before, okay, and we still turn that off until you have to physically say, yes, I want to do deletes, just like before. But now we've given you more options. Okay, so it just makes it a bit more flexible. And then there's a few more down here that we'll touch on. But for the moment, I'm going to get this loaded in. Okay, so just like before, we browse to the file that we're interested in, and then we upload, and off it goes, and we'll start doing its work. Okay, so that's the same as what you're used to. And then it should go through fairly quickly because it's not that big a file. Even when I was doing really, really big loads, talking about hundreds of packages, I think it would be less than 10 minutes. So that was really, really great. Okay, so it's run through. You're hoping for a success. Okay, you might get I had a few errors on my codes. They weren't there, that sort of thing. That's pretty common. That can happen. And then you can just fix the code and run it again. Okay. Oh, okay, it already refreshed. Okay, so this is the project, and now it's created it. So it's created my section for Maximo. It's created my section for P6. It's created my section for SAP. It's added my codes. And let's scroll over. I don't think I filled in some of these, but it added my note, so my UDF. Okay. And then it, of course, copied the resources, steps, etc. So it did my IT stuff. Now let's scroll down. So let's see what it did on the capital work. Okay, so it created my work package 1, my work package 2, 3, etc. Okay, great. Now, as I mentioned, we still load it even if the name is too long for what P6 accepts, okay? So if you get something like this, you can say, oh yeah, I don't really love that one. So you can delete it, you can fix it, and rerun it, okay? So that is something that you can do. So if I don't like this crazy name that it did, okay, I can delete that. WBS, so it'll get rid of it. And then I can go back to my Excel and actually give it a proper name and get rid of that, all that crazy stuff I typed there. And then I can rerun it. Now, just for the sake of time, I'll just rerun that only, okay? So I'm gonna save that. So just like before, if you put a break, it only does up to that break, and it'll just go a little quicker. Okay, so I just want to make sure it deleted it. Yeah, okay, it's deleted, which is good, and I can rerun it in. So let me make sure I saved that. I think I did. And then just like before, like you're used to, you can rerun, and off it'll go, and it'll just do that one. Okay. Perfect. So it's pretty quick. It is really quick. If I had to, search and replace all those names and fix it up, I could have done that too. But it's so darn quick that it's usually just as good to just reload it. Okay. So now I've got that in, and I've got a better name, not that big long name, chopping it off. Okay. Now it used my discipline code to give the activity, to create the activity ID. So these were 10s, these are 20s, etc. Okay. So doing all that, trying to do all that with searches and replaces and get it perfect, it's not easy because especially with the activity ID, right? The activity ID is your bread and butter, can't be duplicated. So this utility for what I was doing with this program was amazing. And we loaded lots of projects, thousands of activities, I'd say over 10,000. Now it took us a while, not so much because of this part, but because of just getting the data sorted, right? The packages were changing, the numbers were changing, etc. The template was changing. I think I ran it 6 different ways with different templates. But without this, if we had to do all that manually, it would have taken at least 5 times as long, okay? So this utility is now available in this version. Okay. And it's highly configurable, as you saw. I replaced the numbers, the names and numbers went together into the fields. So there's lots of different ways you can put your data components together. And then, of course, the coding as well. So the thing that this can be such a huge time saver if you're building out a project from scratch. If you're building out a program, okay. Now, in my example, this is a huge IT program that the client is working on, and understanding what business processes they're changing, understanding the different items they have to build, the different data they have to deal with. It's a very big program. So this really went a long way to being able to build it out. Now, I think I just didn't finish showing you the resources. So the resources, it's copying the resources from the template. And in this example, I put in a foreign exchange rate into the template. Okay, so that's a user-defined field in this case. And in our case, our P6 calculator uses this to do all sorts of great calculations. Okay, but you can insert anything that you need at this resource level. Okay, so that is one of the major changes that we did. Now, let me just go back to the spreadsheet. So this template copying gets its own sheet because it's got certain things it's looking for, just like all the other sheets that we have in Loader. And then you can use the formats to make it specific to yours, okay? So these placeholders need a certain name, as you can see there. Activity codes need a certain name, just like you're used to. And UDFs need a certain naming convention, okay? But then we've got additional fields here, okay, for the updates, okay? So again, I just didn't have time to get it all ready for today. So I'll get it ready for the next session, and we'll run through some updates, okay? So what do you do with relationships? What do we do with resources? If we run it again, what do we expect the behaviors to be? Okay, so these are going to be important if you do updates to your template and you want to run it through a bunch of the different packages you've created. All right, and so I'll run through that in the next session and show you a bit of how that works. Okay, I don't see any questions yet on this, so if you do have any, just throw them in the question room and we'll tackle them. Okay, so that was a huge scope of work that we've added to the P6-Loader. That again, you'll have it as part of your upgrade when you want to get your upgrade done. The other big chunk that we've added to this version was related to layouts. Okay, so let's click into there and let's look at this. I'm going to come back to these upper ones in a moment because they're a little more complicated. I'm going to start with the simpler ones. Okay, so most of you are working in an environment where you have lots of different users. So you know layout management is a big component of what you need to do. So you can export your layouts, of course, one by one out of P6. Now you can highlight them and it'll start churning through them and save them each to a file. So you can do that out of P6 already. You can export filters, etc. So, but we've tried to make that easier for ourselves if we're helping helping you administer, and also for you guys to administer this yourselves. So inside of here, we have the ability to export the layouts. Now you can export all of them, of course, just like by clicking this, you get all of them. Or in my example, I could also just grab the ones I made today for this webinar, okay? So I can go and grab anything that I made at the project level, anything that I made in the activity window. So those are all available to you, okay? And if you made a project layout or if you made a user layout, that's the other big thing, okay? So that's super handy because your users could easily blow away one of their layouts and then they're upset, okay? So this allows you as the administrator to go and get their layouts and save them out as well, okay? So if I go down here, you can see here we have the user layouts available as well. So this is really handy. You can then export the ones you chose and it will make a file. And then you can download that file and have it on your computer or in a shared drive, whatever makes sense. And then it's, in this case, you see it's saving it as a zip file there, okay? Now, when, if you need to bring that back, you do have the ability to re-import it, okay? And where are you going to bring that into? So in my case, I have multiple databases. Not all of you have that. That's okay. And then you can re-import those layouts. Okay, so this is super handy, saves some effort, no doubt, if you've got a lot of layouts, reports, etc. Okay, and you can see it takes global changes and filters and reports as well. That's a big addition, again, just for administration and ease of administration, ease of usability. Now, the other thing that some of you have either gone through or are putting off going through is merging databases. When you want, maybe you have within your organization 5, 10, 15 different databases and you need to merge them, okay? All this data mapping and data sources and managing layouts, it can be quite tricky. So we've tried to make that easier inside of this version with the ability to understand the different fields that you've got within your system. So first and foremost, the basic out of the box fields, P6 knows what those are. So that's not where the issue comes in. The issue comes in with all the special things that you've added to your database. So those are UDFs and codes at all the different levels, right? So we can extract those and we can look at them. And we can, whoops, let's just do it this way. We can tell P6 that, okay, in database A, these are the fields, but perhaps in database B, we want that same field, but we decided we are going to call it something else. Okay, we're going to have a different name. So when you bring a layout in, it doesn't understand these are the same field unless we tell it to. So this is what we call a translation file or a name mapping file. So this is where we read what's in the layout and then we tell it, okay, when you bring it into this new database, this is what it's actually called, okay? So if you've had to go through a cleanup effort, things do change from database to database, but you don't want to lose your layouts. So this is a huge benefit for that effort that maybe you've gone through or maybe you're putting off, okay? So we've helped quite a few clients do that effort. And this is one of the things that we've introduced in this version to make this easier. Ravi, did I explain it properly?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, good. I wanted to make sure I didn't misexplain it. Okay, so that's really what this section is working for. So this lets you get that name mapping file and do those remaps, and this lets you use the remaps when you're taking stuff from one database to the other, okay, and then grabbing layouts. So this is a total game changer, making things much easier for that effort, because layouts, although they're easy to create, if you've got a lot of them, it's quite a time consuming effort, okay? We helped move a client up to the cloud, Oracle Cloud, a few years ago, and we didn't have this quite as nice as we have it now, and it was quite a bit of effort. We were merging 6 standalone databases into one. Okay. So this will make that sort of effort easier. Ravi, did I miss anything in explaining this? I'm not showing it in full detail, but hopefully I've explained it well enough. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you cover everything that we have working right now in there.
Okay. Okay.
For the future, one thing that I want to do is to add the ability to export and import into a different database.
Okay.
Which today is you have to do the copy to make that work. So you can copy the layouts from different databases, but when you export and import, it needs to be to the same database. So I want to make that possible. But yeah, I think you cover everything that we have working right now.
Right. Okay, that's a good point. I didn't explain that completely. These imports and exports are within one database. Right. Okay, good point. All right. Okay, so that was another big feature that we've added. Now let me talk about some of the enhancements that we've added. So I mentioned two, and I'm going to show those to you specifically. The rates. So we have quite a few clients that have the tool because they want to manage the rates in here, okay, the effective dates and the rates. So we always had that, so you can pull it out. But as I mentioned earlier, it was only showing me the resource ID. And in my case, I wasn't very familiar with them. So I really wanted the resource name. So that's something we added. Plus, we added the codes that you might be using as well into that sheet. So again, it's just easier to group, sort, filter, do fill downs, things like that. We wanted to make that simpler for you. The same will go to, it holds true on the predecessors and successors. So I can do an extract here. And I think I already have that already created. What the heck did I call it? What did I call it? NJ version 13. Let's try version 13. Yes, okay, that's this one. Okay, so if I load this up, it's going to go and grab the things that I told it to. So the resource rates was one of the ones I want to show you in detail. The WBS, because of the hierarchies and things like that. So I want to show you that in detail. And activities and relationships. So these are some of the enhancements that we've made just to make those sheets a bit more complete with more data and I think a little easier to work with. So just in case you don't remember, these little pencils on the side allow you to edit which fields it's taking. Okay, so you can if we've added too many fields, you might say, oh, this is not an enhancement, it's too much. Not a problem. You can remove some of the fields, okay, if you don't want to see them. Okay, so that's how you would do that. You can get some of them out of your selection. So just like before, we can run that on one project or many. So I'm going to grab the data out of the project I just loaded up. So this demo project. So I can go ahead and extract that. Okay, so it's off creating all those. Now I already did extract it and I've already got the reloads ready. So I've got that as well. So I can go ahead and pull that out and open it up. And just like in previous versions, it will create one sheet for each of the topic areas. Okay, so I've got my resource rate sheet. I've got my WBS sheet, activities, relationships. So again, if you've used these, you should see that we've got a lot more fields in here. Okay, so that was, again, to make it easier to use. So I can group, sort, filter, etc. in Excel a little bit easier. Okay, now I already made the examples, so you don't have to watch me do that here. So I think it's in this sheet. Yeah. Okay. So I did a simple example. So I filtered on cranes because I want to do my crane, and I want to add another effective date. So you see the old one was 2012. So I'm adding another effective date on my shift 2. Okay, my night shift, and I'm just changing my rates. Now I could do all my night shifts, right? Okay, and if the rates are all the same, I can just, use copy and paste inside of here with and copy and paste inside of here. Okay, so we can, sorry, my Excel skills are terrible. And I can do a copy and paste inside of here. Control C, Control V. There you go. All right. So then that should make it a bit easier. And it wasn't quite so easy when I only had the resource ID in here to filter on. So in this case now, we've added more fields to make that easier, including codes, UDFs. So hopefully that'll make that more functional for you. Now, in relationships, similar thing. We didn't have all the things that I thought they made my life easier when we were working on the IT program. Filtering the project name, but the activity name, the successor name, because we had a good, strong naming convention. Okay, and we also had a good activity ID naming convention, but searching on, I didn't know what all these work packages were, right? So searching 110 would help, but I needed to know what I was actually looking at. So that was the benefit to adding these. So I could search on engineering design and just filter on those, okay? Again, just to make it more functional, because in this particular example, we changed the relationships a lot. Okay, so they did the first template, and they might have had stuff start to start. And then they said, no, it should be finish to start. And then they said, oh, no, it should be start to start with a lag. So we changed logic a lot. So we were able to do these edits very quickly. And that was the benefit there to adding these fields, okay? So in this example, I'm actually, let me go ahead and unselect this. So in this example, what I did was I filtered on all the engineering design, and then I went over here and I renamed the successor. So it was 120, I renamed those to 130s, okay? And anything with this gray, it's not going to load it, okay? So I did clear out the names because, of course, the names were the 120. It's not going to load it. So leaving it with the old names wouldn't have caused any grief. So these grays are just there for information to help easy use in the Excel sheet, okay? So in this case, really quickly, I'm going to create all this logic. Now, in the real example that we were working on, we had hundreds of logic ties. that we were changing. So it was much quicker to do these in P6-Loader than to try and do them, even with the bulk pick list that we have with Logic, it was still much quicker to do them in P6-Loader. Okay, so those are two, and I'm going to load those up in a minute. So let's look at what we talked about with the hierarchical codes. So we have lots of hierarchical codes inside of P6, activity codes, WBS, cost accounts, resource codes, etc. Now, when you're doing lots and lots of creation in Excel, getting your WBS right can be a little frustrating. And what we tried to do here was make this easier for you to build schedules inside of here, okay? So we added some fields. So the first one is the level, okay? Now I'm in the activity window. So what this is telling me is I've got activities that are sitting in level 2 and level 4 of my WBS. So that's helpful because you want to make sure that you've got things in the right place. Now, of course, if you load it into the wrong place, you can cut and paste in P6. It's not the end of the world, but it's nice to try and get it as close to correct out of the gate, okay? Now, when I'm building the WBS in and of itself, okay, sometimes it's easier just to build the full path instead of figuring out which one's the parent, which one's the code, the individual component of the last bit of the code. So we've added, again, these levels here. This is really handy too, to make sure you've got it right, okay? So, okay, this is my level 1. Okay, awesome. This is what I want, the shutdown turnaround and the capital project. Now, what do I want for my level 2? Okay, I can see it. And of course, you can filter those, right? So I can filter just to see my capital. Yeah, that's the right level. So we added that to make the easy use of dealing with building a WBS much better. Hopefully you'll feel that too. If you use it for this, certainly I found it was a huge gain to be able to see what I actually had inside of there and what I was building. Okay, so that's one layer. The other layer is I can just create the whole WBS in one field. I can use, Excel functions to chop them up too if I want, or I can actually load it using just that full field. Okay, so that's another addition that we did in the hierarchical options. Okay, so do I want to use the full field or do I want to use the classic, which is the two broken out? So that we've given you the ability to do it whichever way you like. Okay, now why did we put all this in here? Well, just in case, as you're, wrong sheet. Just in case as you're building it out. So as in this example, you see I didn't bother filling them in. Okay, so I'm telling it to read just this and ignore these others. Okay, so if you've used the WBS and you've had to build it, you might understand what I'm talking about. It can be a little frustrating to make sure you've got the levels right, and you can get a little bug-eyed after a while if you're building a big schedule. Okay, Ravi, did I miss any points on these sheets?
No, I think you cover everything, Nicole.
Okay, good. So I can load them up. Now, I didn't change anything on this activity sheet, so I can ask P6-Loader just to skip it by putting a different letter in there. But I did change the relationships. I did make this WBS. I've got the empty row, which of course will let it stop there and not go further. And in here, I could be a little clever and put a break in here. I'll just let it read the whole thing and run it in. Okay, so we're expecting all these cranes to get these new effective dates and the new rate that I punched in. Okay, so we'll take a look at some of those. So I'm going to load it up. Let me just make sure I know which one I'm grabbing. Okay, P6-Loader version 13 extract. Okay. Well, I'm blind. There it is. Okay, just need to go a little further down. Okay, awesome. We'll get it loaded up. Okay, and off it'll go and do its thing. Maybe I should have skipped a few. We have a lot of stuff in our, maybe it's going to take a while. We have a lot of stuff in our dictionary. Okay, so we'll let it do its thing. Our demo has a lot of stuff. Okay, did I see an error? It's possible that something I did didn't make sense. Or maybe I grabbed the wrong file. Okay, let's see. Let's see if it ran through. Looks good. Looks, I mean, like I said, I had a lot of resource rates in there. Okay, I think it probably did most of the things I wanted. All right, so I'll just refresh it, just like you always do, and then I'm going to look for the crane. I got a lot of them in here. What was it called? 150? No, I don't think that's the right one. Just a sec, sorry. Let's just do this. Okay, 115-ton crane, and we'll go on our shift 2, and then the price per units are in there. Okay, as expected, and with the new date as expected. Okay, so again, the loading was already there. It was just the ease of use inside the sheet that we wanted to change. Let's look at the relationships. Now, which one did I do? Let's just double check on that. Okay, so we want to go look up. I can do any of these 110s, it looks like. Okay. Okay, so here's the 110. Let's go look at the relationships. Yeah, looks like we've got the 120 and the 130 out. So that's the new one that it's added. Let me just make sure I did refresh everything. And we can look at the 110 here. Okay, so that's what we expect, to have 2 relationships now on every one of those. Okay, so hopefully, again, if you use those pieces, I think you'll see that those are really, really beneficial. I know they save me a lot of time and frustration as well. Okay, great. What did I miss? I'm sure I missed something, Ravi. I know there were lots of little changes as well. The IDs, the clashing, some clashing and things like that. Maybe you remember, and I probably missed them, but maybe we can speak to them.
Yeah, basically, in some areas in P6, I think EPS nodes and WBS nodes, you have the requirement for the object to be unique in a given level. So for example, you can have a WBS with a code, but the name of the WBS also has to be unique.
Right.
Like
okay.
Here in this example,
Right.
Nicole has those design, fabrication, and construction. The names of those WBS nodes have to be unique. Otherwise, P6 won't let you load them. So what the loader does, it has something that lets you unclash them. So if you try to load 2 WBS nodes, it will assign it that, just like Nicole did manually, a -1 and -2 to each WBS node where the name is a duplicate.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
Because that prevents you from loading it. The idea was we wanted to do the maximum that we could so that you can load a file without errors.
Yeah. Right. Exactly, exactly. So rather than having errors, and then you're like, what got in, what didn't, we tried to get it in and give you a warning message, that we had to do this to it. And then you could say, oh yeah, okay, I'll go fix that up manually, and that way it would still land. Okay, so that was one of the big objectives on some of the improvements, is let's try and get it to land, give a warning so the user can go fix it themselves afterwards, rather than having so much stuff not get in. Okay, if you've got names that are all the same and things like that. Okay, good. All right, so I think I went through everything that we wanted to. Hopefully you saw something that you think will make your use of P6-Loader even better, use it even more. The idea of the template to me is awesome because you can run it into any project. Okay, so as your projects are being developed, templates go such a long way for all sorts of things. Okay, now one of the other big things that a template brings to the table is it lets you, of course, get your reporting standardized. That's a huge, huge piece of it always. And more, this is what we're spending quite a bit of our time on with our clients, is to get their reporting up into different dashboards. It's definitely the big thing these days, is to get it out into dashboards. So here's sort of example of a green up or a matrix or whatever terminology you want to use, what you can do now with these. Okay, so you can have these templated with different finish dates across the grid, with different color codings for float, work weeks, etc. So these sort of heat map type diagrams can be really handy, and you can color code them with all sorts of different things. But this is something that's really easy for anyone to consume. You don't need to be a Gantt chart specialist or expert on understanding Gantt charts. So this is the kind of stuff that you can produce very readily because you've templated. Okay, great. So I don't see any questions. So hopefully you saw some things of interest. We do want to extend a thank you, not only for coming on the webinar this morning, but also for being such fantastic clients. When we started to build our tools, P6-Loader was one of the first ones, TAPS as well. And, it wasn't something that we really were expecting to do, was to start building so much software. But over the years, we've enhanced P6-Loader so much based on your requests, your needs. And these two were really client-driven, these big ones that we've just done. They were client-driven. And what was kind of really nice here was we were able to use some existing clients, things that we've done on integrations, etc., to create this part for the loader. And interestingly enough, one of our clients that we had done that integration for now saw what we did in Loader and they wanted to use it. So it's very very collaborative, very community oriented. What we've done for one client starts to benefit the other, and then they get benefits from another client's requirements. So it's been a great journey. I do appreciate all of your support, and hopefully the tools that we're building out and enhancing are becoming more and more beneficial for your organization. So I just wanted to express that gratitude, and let's keep going. This is a huge win. This client that helped us build this, they would have spent many more hours building their program. So they've definitely seen a lot of value, and hopefully some others can benefit from that effort as well. Okay, well, I'll stop the